All right, our next pair of speakers comes to us from the capital region of New York. And I had, dear heavens, here we go. I had the privilege to get to know Kathy Lanni and Allison Schwartz. I screwed this up so many times yesterday, guys. So, Allison Schwartz. Now I'm second guessing myself on everything. As we looked at feasibility for shared services in the capital region and what that would do. And so it's been really interesting to watch how this partnership has grown over time. Kathy leads the Community Support Department for SEFCU, a regional credit union. And Allison is the Director of Programs at the Center for Academic Community Engagement, ACE, at Siena College. So I welcome you guys on up and hope you can share. Yep.
All the way from the capital region.
I'll do it once. Okay, yeah.
So my name is Kathy Lanni, and I'm the Chief Community Officer at SEFCU, which means I manage all the philanthropy for the organization. So I'm the F word today. I'm the funder.
And I'm Allison Schwartz. As Katie said, I'm the Director of Programs at the Center for Academic Community Engagement, or ACE, at Siena College. And what Kathy and I would like to speak with you today about is the partnership that our two organizations have developed over the past 4 or 5 years. A little bit of the history, but really more importantly, what we'd like to talk about is an assessment that we started about a little more than a year ago, to see what we're doing well, what we're not doing so well, and how hopefully we can move forward with a shared space, shared resources model that can help us help our community to transform and strengthen.
So again, I am the Chief Community Officer at SEFCU, which is one of the largest top 50 credit unions across the country and clearly the largest in our region. We also are one of the largest philanthropic organizations, which is odd as a credit union. So we have a very different philosophy about community and what our role is as a member of that community in a larger way. We focus our funding on 3 kind of buckets, as most philanthropists. We have that safety net funding, which is that funding that we give to organizations to make sure they keep their doors open to serve their community. We also have that middle bucket, which we call the capacity building funding, which is that 2 to 3 year, multi-year gift to an organization to kind of lift them up and get them to that next place. Then the third bucket, I'll call that transformational funding, which is that 3 to 5+ year, multi-year commitment that we make to an organization to really allow them to transform the community, themselves and the community. So when I joined the credit union, just about 4 years ago, we were really high in the safety net funding and kind of middle in the transformational, but very weak in that middle level. So as we looked into ourselves, we said we need to shift our model of funding to really from serving to solving problems. So this was really where we looked to Siena and their program to help us to get there.
So the Center for Academic Community Engagement at Siena College is a center on my campus where 9 programs serve the same mission of developing agents of change in the capital region and beyond. All of our programs partner students, faculty, and administrators with nonprofit partners in our region to address issues of social and economic justice. All of our programs are cohort-based and developmental. And what that means is that our students come in as a team. They learn together, they develop and grow as professionals, as leaders, and as community-engaged academics. And as they're doing that, they take on more and more responsibility at their sites, but also act as peer mentors to the students that come into their programs after them. Our students commit 8 to 10 hours a week in service, training, and enrichment, and also spend time reflecting on social justice and how it impacts the work they're doing. Most of our students are completing a certificate in community development, which means they're committing a significant amount of time both in the classroom, learning about community development, but also having high impact experiential opportunities in the community. So the Nonprofit Excellence in Training Program, or NEXT, we're big on the acronyms at my center, is a program that Kathy at SEFCU and me at ACE work together most closely on. It's a nonprofit business consulting firm where teams of students work with a partner, a nonprofit partner, to look at business challenges like strategic planning or marketing communications plan. And this program has been transformational for our students. And what I mean by that is students are telling us that over the 2, 3, 4 semesters that they're involved in this program, as they develop as professionals, as communicators, as academics, that those skills are bubbling over into all areas of their lives. So in the classroom, in the other activities they're participating in on campus, and as they begin to interview for internships or permanent jobs, they are able to confidently articulate the skills and experiences they've had in the NEXT program. But more importantly, they are finding that they are understanding the value of civic engagement in public life. And they have said that they want to bring that along with them as they leave Siena, move on either from the Capital District and beyond there.
So as we were looking to kind of change our model, again, from serving to solving, one of our frustrations was that although we give a very large amount of money back to the community, it was never enough. There never seemed to be enough. And we were receiving requests from organizations who very often had that duplication of services. So it put me as a funder in the role of the wizard, right? I like you, I don't like you. So we were feeling this frustration, and really, when we learned about the NEXT program, saw this as an opportunity to make an investment to make our community stronger. So we made a $500,000 multi-year gift pledge to Siena to partner with them to ideally change the landscape of our community, our not-for-profit community, to make it stronger, but also change how we as an organization were responding to that community.
So as excited as we were about the transformational impact on our students on the NEXT program, Kathy and I began to look at, were we having that same kind of impact in the community? And we weren't quite sure we were. It seemed like the model that we were implementing, Kathy, with the funding that she was doing with individual programs, and for us working one-on-one with organizations, is that we were fostering service duplication, we were encouraging competition for funding, and we were basically telling organizations to work on their own. And this was not aligned with our goals or our vision. At ACE, we're trying to unite allies for collective action in the community, and this was not what we were doing. And I think Kathy had a similar.
Exactly. Again, we tell, it's kind of like the Nike philosophy of just do it. And we recognize that organizations don't have the capacity to just do it. And they really needed us collectively to work together to help them get to that next level. So it became, how do we go from here, right? We took that kind of mid-level breath and said, okay, some things need to change.
So we thought first, can our community adapt? And we thought before we make any changes, let's see what we know about our community and what we need to learn. So the first thing is to know is in the capital region of New York State, it's the capital of New York State, 4 counties, and we have a regional population of about 850,000 people. And the regional poverty level is somewhere between 11 and 12%. But that kind of covers up some poverty concentration that we have in our region. There are 3 relatively small cities, Albany, Schenectady, and Troy. And when you look at poverty rates in those regions, they run from 25% up to 30, almost 35%, depending on which city you live in. And when you drill down a little more specifically and look at child poverty levels, that moves us up to, I don't know, about 33% on the low side and 46% on the high side. 46 out of 100 children in Troy, New York live at or below the poverty level. That statistic kind of blew me away. I mean, that shows us that there are some significant challenges that we are facing in our community. And people who are living at this kind of economic level, they're facing, as we all know, very severe and multiple risks. They're not just food insecure. They're not just housing insecure. or access to healthcare problems. They're facing often many of these challenges. And one organization cannot address all of these alone. We need multi-layered, complex initiatives to look at these together. We need our community. So obviously our model was not supporting community needs. So it came to this idea that it's not a question of can, it's a question that we have to. And so we started to think about what are the things that we have in our community that can help us with this. Well, we have some wonderful regional foundations. SEFCU is really one of the leads in this area that are significantly committed to our region. We have over 4,800 nonprofits, most of them with very small budgets. And so we can show that there's interest in helping our community. We just need to help them work together, to collaborate. So we had some data from a 2015 survey. This was a New York State survey, State of the Sector survey. In 2015, they found that there was some collaboration going on. 49% of respondents in New York State said that in the last 12 months, they had collaborated on a service provision or an event. And then 50% of respondents were planning to do the same in the next 12 months. So we thought, in New York State, this is going on. And how can we find out if it's going on in our region?
And can we make the future today? That was the big question. So I began, when I first came to SEFCU, to look at the concept of shared services and shared spaces and connected pretty quickly with NCN and Katie. And we saw this as an opportunity to really explore this concept as one way to begin to foster these collaborations in our community. So will this even work, and would it work in the capital region? So rather than to kind of figure that out myself, we actually consulted with Katie to do a feasibility study. And through that study, it was really probably the smartest thing that we collectively have really done, because it's given us a springboard that we can now begin to do some work. So we did the feasibility study. We had a town hall meeting at SEFCU. We stuck initially to the social services, human services sector. And we invited 400 organizations to come and learn more about what we were about to embark on. And we had 104 come to the town hall. The key was you had to come with the executive director and one board member. So we insisted that there were dual representation. Because as much as boards can help us, they can also get in our way. So we conducted some surveys, we did focus groups, and we interviewed one-on-one 12 organizations. So as we were about to embark upon this study, I said to myself, I would be remiss if I did not include our partner in this work. So I called Katie. I said, Katie, I have an idea for you. What do you think about working with the team at Siena? And she's like, well, we've never done that, but hey, let's give it a try. And I think it proved to be really a valuable experience for both, really all three of us, as we begin to leverage each other's strengths and really allow the Siena to come in. And the key, I think, as well, I cannot stress this enough on the feasibility study, is that both of us and really Katie were neutral partners. We had no dog in this race other than to seek to understand. So typically in our community, if an organization were the lead, half the people wouldn't come because they would be nervous, or what's the ulterior motive? So we came to this really as three neutral people trying to seek to understand. And I think that really, and we learned that in the survey, was critical to the success of the study.
And I just want to add, this is one of our next fellows, Desi, and she was able to participate and present during this town hall. So you can see the kinds of opportunities students in this program have, and makes it a little easier to understand those kind of transformations. So the data. We had some really interesting and exciting data that came in, and Katie came back to present this. We were looking at this idea that right now there's collaboration going on in the capital region. We're like, yay, it's happening.
Yeah.
One-time programs or events or recurring events. That's the kind of collaboration we were having. But what was really exciting is that the respondents were saying in the future, we'd like to do some more complex kinds of initiatives together. Things like fundraising, shared staffing, coordinated purchasing, volunteer management, things that are, pretty significant kinds of pieces to a functioning of a nonprofit. So that kind of gave us some momentum to move forward in this project. We also asked about operational challenges. What are the things that really are, as I've heard a lot of times, these pain points that you're having? Things like fundraising, data management, IT, all the things we've been talking about, right? Strategic planning and human resources. Again, some really vital pieces to success in these areas. What was really exciting was that organizations were saying in the terms of the demand for shared services, the list of those items aligned really well with the operational challenges that organizations were having. So what that told us is that organizations were seeing where they were having these challenges, and they were open to maybe changing how they do business. And that change was potentially through a shared services, shared resources model. So that was really exciting.
So what are the challenges to these collaborative efforts? And we talk, parochialism. We knew that going in, and Katie was like, oh boy, you're right. So again, having organizations open to say, we're willing to consider sharing. So at the first town hall meeting, when we kind of got it going, you could almost feel a tension in the room. People were not looking side to side. They were kind of looking straight ahead with the big bubble over the head saying, what the heck are you people going to do to me while I'm here? But as the day went on, and certainly Katie and her team were excellent through some role playing and some kind of short little group exercises, the tension began to come down. And people began to look to the right and to the left and understand what each other did. So we have these communities, Troy, Schenectady, Albany, Saratoga, they're 15-minute drive away, but they're divided by a river. That doesn't mean you can't cross the bridge. And there were organizations who were literally, one in Troy and one in Schenectady, did not even know they each existed, but were doing the very same thing. So it was really, again, this parochialism, and then you add in mistrust to the equation. It seemed impossible that we were going to ever get anyone to collaborate. So again, people were resistant of change in fear of losing their own identity, and these were hurdles we really needed to begin to challenge and figure out. But what does make collaboration work is the F word. Funding, right? So we said to organizations, we will incent you to collaborate. We need you to collaborate. We can't fund you all. But if you are willing to tear down some of the barriers and you're willing to really work together, we will fund that. So that begins to dangle the carrot. You begin to get some percolation underneath, which was good. Trust. Trust is the basis of any good relationship, certainly a collaboration. So we recognized that we needed to build trust among these organizations in a way that they could begin to see each other in a different way, not as enemies, but as collaborators, as organizations who have the same passions and want to see our community get better. And keeping those collaborations in the beginning low risk, we also felt was really important. And they told us that. We're willing to maybe share an event or two, but beyond that, not so sure. But I think if we could build these low-risk opportunities where people could then begin to work together and collaborate, and it was successful, then they could begin to collaborate in a much larger way with supportive leadership. So we were excited. So again, what makes these solutions successful? Again, leveraging interests and minimizing risk. We knew we had to do that. Providing incentives, again, dangling the carrot, saying we will fund your collaborative work. Just bring it to us. Again, building cohorts of highly interested people around the same initiative. Letting them see who each other are, what their strengths are, where perhaps they may need to work with each other to make a stronger outcome. And giving people opportunities to engage over time. So again, as we were thinking of how can we build this trust model to include all these successful pieces, it again became clear that we had to have a neutral facilitator. We could not put an organization up as the poster child to say, everybody come join me. So we had to remain neutral. And again, that's been one of the successes of where we've been so far. So one of the things we learned from this study is that, again, people were willing to begin to learn to collaborate. But what they needed was a platform to build this trust, hence this communication portal. So I really had the concept of the portal from the NCN blog. So when I first joined NCN and was thinking about doing a study, I threw some questions out on the blog, and I was totally blown away by the caliber and quality of information I was getting back. People were sending me business plans, financial models, and I was like, you're kidding me. Because normally if I were to ask that question in my own community, I wouldn't get those kinds of answers. I get very evasive answers, if answers at all. So I thought, there's value to this. I was the recipient of the value. So could we then use this same model to build trust and strength in our own community? So again, laying the future of collaborative efforts around a portal of communications to ideally build trust initially, but then build that trust in a more offline way. And again, we chose to partner with Siena to bring this to life.
So there were a lot of lessons that we learned in our hope, our journey to transform our community. First, and probably the most exciting piece, is that there's interest. Our organizations are saying, yeah, we would like to do this. Obviously, there's some significant barriers to change, but the work that Katie and NCN put forward said this portal might be what you need. It can maybe mediate that twist from distrust to trust. And it was a starting point. We didn't want to think that it was an end goal. It was a means to an end, kind of an important baby step to get organizations to get to know each other, to learn that they share a number of problems, but that they can work together to maybe figure them out. And one of the things we learned is that we cannot do this. We cannot do the work for them. We can maybe provide a landscape that these organizations can jump on and learn from each other and work as collaborators. So they have to do the work to build, transform, and strengthen and move us together.
I just want to interject for one quick minute that when I first was looking at the concept of shared services and shared spaces, I was going to come in on the white horse, and I was going to create a shared service and a shared space, and people were going to come, and life was going to be great. No. I learned what my role was. And I think it's so important as you're building and running your shared spaces, what is your role? And I went to the conference in Vancouver and talked to many other organizations who did have a shared space. And it became very clear to me that my role was not to do this work, just like it's not my role or Siena's role to do the work. It's our role to be the convener, to be that catalyst that we talked about, to create this change, the spark to say, we can do this work together. We'll provide you that opportunity. So that was a really important lesson, I think, for me, coming in thinking I was going to save the day, recognizing that that clearly was not my role.
So the question, the age-old question, can this old dog share some new tricks?
We're into dogs and cats today,
Yeah.
aren't we?
So this is Nipper, the RCA dog. Some of you around my age might remember Nipper. And this is the only remaining Nipper on the East Coast, maybe in the country. And he is an iconic figure in Albany. But man, he's been there since the 50s and he hasn't changed. And that's kind of representative of how we feel our community is, or how we thought our community was. But maybe we can make some change here. First of all, our next team right now is working on implementing a beta test on a new communications platform, and we're really excited. They are going to, that will launch, the beta will launch in the beginning of the spring semester, and then the full program launching in the end of the semester. There's excitement in the community. Kathy speaks with organizations every day, lets them know that this is coming, and they're getting excited. They're kind of talking together about where they might go. At ACE, where I work, we're talking about how we can engage our partners in the portal to know what their concerns are, but also how we can connect them together. There's already been some collaboration that's been sparked by our town halls that bookended the survey, and there's a merge going on between some organizations that are doing the same things. But most importantly, our nonprofit community is not only seeing that they need to collaborate, but that there's value in collaboration. And that is the tipping point we see for having some transformational, strengthening opportunities in our community.
So as we wind up, I think, when we're talking about transaction to transformation, certainly our relationship, and I use my credit card swiper, started as a transaction. We wanted to support a program that we believed in, that we felt could benefit our community. But then we didn't step back. We stayed engaged with that transaction all along to try to strengthen it, to learn from it, to be a part of that transaction, which I do believe has been the catalyst to what I hope to be a major transformation in our community. So as funders, as centers, as not-for-profit organizations, it's important that as we begin to move forward, we think about, is this a transaction that can lead to a transformation? Because I know as a funder, one of the things that we look at all the time is, are we making an impact? And I don't know that today I can really answer that question. Am I helping people? Absolutely. Are the people we're helping stronger or better as a result of that? Absolutely. But I look at the issue of hunger, we're trying to attack that right now. When I look at what we spend on organizations and invest in organizations who are serving hungry people and all the efforts we're putting around hunger, they're still hungry people. So none of that is really changing. So I think transaction to transformation is really important as we go about doing this work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a great project to work with. And if anybody is in New York, talk to Allison about getting her Siena students to work with you, because they're amazing. So are there questions for Allison and Kathy?
Hi, we experimented with a little bit of a collaborative effort over a specific topic, and you mentioned the issue of trust and then also allowing for engagement over time. That was a little bit conflicting for us. I was wondering how you deal with that, because to build trust, we had to tell people, okay, this is going to be the core group for the next few months. It's not going to change. Yet that doesn't leave the opportunity, like you were saying, for people to engage over time. So how do you balance those two?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I don't know that I can answer that question. I think, the trust happens over time, and you can't start with a football field of people to build trust. You have to start small. But I think what we're trying to do is build this consortium to say that you may not be in on the ground floor, certainly like the beta test, and people say, oh, I want to be part of the beta, I want to be part of the beta. Well, you can't all be part of the beta. But what they can be is part of the larger community. So, I think it's tempering their enthusiasm to want to be engaged with the reality of what you're trying to accomplish, and let them know that there is room at the table and that they will be included and are a valuable member of the community that you're trying to create, but it takes time. So to me, that's how we're kind of going about that. I don't know if that really answers your question, but you can't start with the elephant.
And just to add into that, one of the really exciting pieces or modules of the communications platform is it allows for sub-communities. So maybe an organization is not really leading in the universal kind of community, but they can have space to think and grow trust and get ideas from organizations that are fighting one specific issue, but also then connect. I'm thinking about that networking software to connect with each other in ways, having those weak links, and think about how they can make change together. And so but it is a long-term piece. And you're right, people will come and go. That's the nature of the.
We have another question on the live stream. Wondering how shared space leaders should pitch ideas to funders like you, and what should they emphasize that gets you excited about shared space?
What gets me excited about shared space, I think, is creating a stronger community, and that many not-for-profit organizations have been doing their work for years in our region, and their executive director, if they weren't the founder, they're the daughter or son of the founder, and their boards have been the founding boards, and steeped in history, which is amazing to honor. But if we stay the same, like Nipper, we're not going to be stronger, because what we're doing is very fragmented approach to solving as Allison calls these wicked problems. And we can't solve the problems unless we're willing to work off really each other's strengths. So I am incredibly excited about the concept of shared services and shared spaces in the capital region. We have made it known that we will fund shared services and shared spaces in the capital region, but it has to be the right thing, right? It has to be the right time, the right project. And I think we're building to that, but I think you'll find most funders will be open and really be embracing these types of models. I mean, we walked around yesterday and I'm like, boy, we are behind the times, you know? So I don't think it would be a tough pitch.
One challenge when one is bringing funding to the table is you're not just dangling a carrot, you're often dealing with organizations that in some cases are desperate. And so they'll join an initiative because they need the money so much, but they're not really committed to the collaborative goals or the ultimate outcome. Did you encounter that, and how have you dealt with that, if so?
You know, that safety net, right? They're hanging on. And we don't want organizations to constantly feel like they need to hang on, you know? So we're trying to help them to build their capacity, but you can see pretty clearly through the forest, through the trees, just by asking some questions as to how and why they're coming to the table. We are not saying to organizations, if you don't play, we won't pay. But in essence, we're going to say, if you don't play, we won't pay. Because it's important that, again, the incentive is there to collaborate, but you want the best result. So if an organization or groups of organizations want to stay to the outside and look in, we can't fund that. We have to fund collaboration. So at some point there will be that, and it's not meant to be punitive, it's meant to say we have to put our money and invest in the best possible outcomes. And working in a silo may not be the best outcome for our community. So we're kind of shifting, again, serving to solving. And I think once you are very clear with what your initiatives are that you will fund, folks will either choose to get in the canoe or not. But I think as long as you stay true to what you're going to fund, they'll probably quickly come along.
And I would say in terms of capacity building piece, so maybe not the organizations that are going to fold next week, but Kathy will also often send them to our teams at Next. And we also have some policy programs and other kinds of direct service where we can help. But we can help organizations at a no cost to look at some of those problems and help them build that capacity. So I think between the two of us, we have a way of managing some, helping those organizations that really need it, but maybe are not ready to collaborate in the way we're hoping.
All right, well, that is time. So let's give our speakers a round of applause.